So we'll get started with the lecture for today. I'd like to welcome everyone to our 11th lecture series for the spring semester. And just a note, next Friday will be our last lecture, Friday afternoon lecture. Today's lecture is by Annalie Diego. Her work is a reflection of pop culture, architecture, and design. It's a vessel for sharing her views, ideas, and personal stories relative to her community. Annalie is an artist, interior designer, professor, and the program coordinator for the interior design program at the College of Architecture. As an artist, Annalie has dabbled in many traditional mediums, but has found technology to be her tool of choice. Her graphic illustrations are meticulously rendered with emphasis on color, pattern, and proportions. And to Annalie's lecturing for today on branding. Everyone please welcome Annalie Diego.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. I know that most of you have no choice, so I hope you find this useful. So when I was asked to speak today, I thought, okay, I can talk about many things, but the one thing that I feel is usually left till the end of a student's career path is the branding or, the creation of your unique identity as a designer. So I thought that branding would be a good thing to talk about today. It's a fun topic, way more intricate than you guys might think. So I hope that you find these tips that I'm going to give you today useful as you start or you continue your studies, because as I understand, most of you are second semester students, freshman students, so it's never too early to start working on your branding. I am not a graphic designer, but I am passionate about graphics. I incorporate it in my work as much as I can. So I could say that it's my passion, and hopefully you will find this inspirational. So, but before we get to the tips and to the advice and to the examples, do you know what branding is? Can any of you give me a definition for branding, or what your understanding of branding is, to the best of your knowledge? Hayden?
To represent what you're about or stuff?
Yes, to represent what you're about. Any other ideas? Yes? Your image, yes. So in a nutshell, branding is what people think about you and your services. What consumers think about you and your services. As Jeff Bezos would say, your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. Now, my first advice to you is to always be yourself. And I know that this sounds very, very cliche, but the more that you try to be somebody you're not, the hardest is going to be for you to create a brand that people identify to. Can you give me examples of successful designers? They don't have to be architects or interior designers, just people that you admire. They can be fashion designers. They can be other types of designers. Yes?
Kate Spade.
Kate Spade, fashion designer. Coco Chanel? Has anybody heard of Coco Chanel? Karl Lagerfeld? What about Walt Disney? Yes, I hope everybody has heard of Walt Disney, right? What about Steve Jobs? Yes? So what do these people have in common? They're known for being themselves, really. So they were true to their identity. They were unapologetically who they are, or were or are, because some of them have already passed. But being yourself and knowing your value is really what's going to set you apart from the rest. Because in architecture and design school, we all learn the same tools, right? What matters is how you deliver those services once you get to that point, right? Or how you brand yourself whenever you get to that point. So a creation of a portfolio, a creation of your business card and resume is extremely important when you're going to start getting out there for potential employers to hire you. So I'm going to talk about a few of these people in the next couple of slides. But I want you to know that the first advice is to really recognize what your unique set of talents is and try to strengthen them and try to show them through your brand as you get to create your portfolio and your resume and your business card, your logo, your image in general as a designer. Another thing I wanted to say is, or that people have asked, is how long does it take to create a brand? Any guesses?
Lifetime?
Yeah. Or it feels at least like it, right? It depends on who, it depends on the person, right? Sometimes it takes less time, sometimes it takes a longer time. I've been out of school since 2011 and I'm still working on it. I'm on the 4th revision of my image, so it's kind of, you know, a never-ending process. And we'll talk about the different things that make it a never-ending process as we continue through the lecture. But yes, it doesn't happen overnight, it doesn't happen in a week, it doesn't happen in a month. It can take years to build a strong brand. As long as you have your mission and your mission is clear, you'll get there. So you have to be patient, just like in any other design project. Creating a brand takes vision, it takes strategy, it takes observation, it takes implementation of your strategy, and revisions of your strategy. Whenever you feel like you failed in some aspects, you can make revisions until you find the image that works for you and that clearly portrays who you are as a designer. So I'm going to focus today on the steps that I have followed throughout my career to create the image that I currently have, and that I don't think I'm going to be changing anytime soon. I'm finally happy with what I have created for myself. So I think it's a good point. I'm at a good place in my career where I can share this confidently and in the hopes that this can help you as well. So the first thing that I did when I was planning on creating my brand was conduct research. And this sounds very general, but it's really not. You need to get very specific with the way that you conduct research. By conducting research, I don't mean Pinterest or Google or, you know, Wikipedia. You really need to kind of understand different aspects of the industry that you're in before you can create a brand that's going to stand out to potential consumers, right? So there's two aspects to conducting research. One is identify your target audience, which we'll talk about a little bit in the next slide. Second is know what everybody else is doing. What does this mean? You need to research companies. Maybe people that you admire, or maybe just people that are big in the architecture and interior design industry. And sometimes you can even research people that you admire in general. You know, fashion designers, Jeff Bezos, for instance, Amazon, you know, Steve Jobs also. Walt Disney was a very big influence to me, and he is not exactly an architect or an interior designer, but he's a genius. So just when creating your brand, you don't need to stay within your industry. You can really go expand a little bit beyond that. Then you need to define your purpose. What is your purpose? What are you passionate about when it comes to architecture and interior design? It might be a little bit hard for you to answer this question at this moment, but you might have a couple of ideas of, you know, what you're really passionate about. I always knew what I was passionate about, so that kind of made it easier. What made it very challenging for me is that I was passionate about too many things. So how can I tie them all in and make something cohesive out of my brand? So I'll talk a little bit about that in the next couple of slides as well. Then you identify your strengths. And after you have identified those strengths and know confidently that you can deliver services, that will make the lifestyle of your consumer better, then you create your brand. So these are the 4 steps that I'm going to be talking about next. So conducting research. As I said, the foundation for building your brand is to determine your target audience. Why is this important? You want these people to be clicking on your ads or looking for you on Instagram and Facebook and what's the other one that's the professional net, LinkedIn, you know. You need to have people be looking for you on social media. So your presence in a web platform needs to be very unique, needs to be very transparent, and needs to be very clear. Nowadays, we really need to focus on our social media presence, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well. I'll give you some examples. So the key here is to get specific. You might not be able to get very specific with determining your target audience right now, but at least we can have a very clear idea, kind of a good idea of who it will be, which will be millennials. More than likely, you are a millennial, right? Were you born between 1980 and 1999? Some of you are 2000 maybe. But anyway, you have an advantage, right? Because you are one of these people. But anyway, millennials are defined as the largest cohort size in history. They were born between 1980 and 1999 and are known as a generation of connected, diverse collaborators. They're more tolerant of other races and groups than older generations, perhaps because 11% were born to at least one immigrant parent. So this quote alone, by doing this research and trying to understand who your potential target audience is, can already kind of give you ideas on how you're going to be designing spaces for them. If they're collaborators, maybe they're more open to get for you to design open plans, transformable spaces, flexible spaces, right? Isn't that what we're all kind of learning in architecture school? Because we have to stay current and we have to be able to design for the people that are going to be using these buildings. So, another thing about millennials. Can anybody give me another description for what millennials do nowadays? Huh? Not really. So, does this look familiar to you? And that? Yeah, technology. Technology is a major thing in our lives, right? And even if you're not a millennial, you're just, dragged into it. So, technology. Technology is basically the driving force of our lives right now. And so design should be as well, right? Same with your brand. Your presence online is crucial for you to be able to sell your services and to stand out. There's a couple of problems about creating a brand that you're going to get out there on social media, right? It needs to be unique. It needs to be transparent. There's so many fake things out there that your message needs to be so clear that people look for you and that people know that you are the deal, right? You are you are what you portray online, basically. So, aside from, now that we kind of tackled who our target audience is, the next thing is that you conduct research regarding what everybody else is doing. I picked a couple of firms to talk about because they're different size firms that I thought their websites were well designed, and also their design approach is something that I admire personally. But you can pick your own. One thing that I really like about Gensler, aside from the projects they do, is their branding. Their branding is so simple that you just recognize it as just that, what you see right there. And also they have their name spelled out. Whenever you do your brand, you can have a short version of your name or your company as well as a long version, and then you use it interchangeably depending on what makes sense for what purpose. But Gensler, what is the problem with Gensler? And I want to go into their website, but it doesn't let me here. Should. Why does it go to the next one? Anyway, well, I'm just going to type up Gensler. So Gensler, can anybody tell me what they know about Gensler? Nobody? Nobody knows who Gensler is? Wow.
One of the largest architecture and interior design firms in the world.
Yes. So imagine how hard it was for these people to create a website that was easy to navigate. They have so many projects, they appeal to so many people that organization and cohesion was the key to success. Navigating through websites can sometimes be a nightmare, but for Gensler, I thought it was it's very easy to really know what you're looking for and find what you're looking for and learn from what you're looking for. So another thing that I wanted to show you, aside from all the projects, so whenever you get to their website, you can filter through projects. If you know specifically what project you're looking for, this is easy. But what I normally do is I filter and I go by expertise. So if I'm giving a project to my students that relates to healthcare, then I have them look for healthcare projects as precedents and so on. So it's very easy for people to find what they're looking for. That's regarding their website design. It's also not very busy at all. If you see, they just have one money shot, as we call it, and then very few text, right? And then they have a very simple bar over here where you can kind of find what you're looking for. And I thought the one that I wanted to show you was this one. I wanted to show you what their mission is. So Gensler says that for us, design is the means. The starting points are goals, strategies, and expectations, but it transcends them to create a new and better reality. Design is transformative. What they're talking about is what they stand for. They're not describing what services they provide. They're telling you the how they provide them and how they're making your life better through their designs. So whenever you're drafting your mission, don't talk about, oh, I can do space planning and I can design a building. No, how do you do it? How you do it is really what's going to make you memorable. If you think of, and I'm going to get to that in a moment, but have you guys ever heard Steve Jobs speak? Okay, so he's more focused about the why of his services, and that's what makes people want to get an iPhone. Not just this, right? It's really the lifestyle the status that you get from owning an iPhone. For some reason, his marketing strategies are amazing. Apple's in general. Now I'm going to go to a smaller scale firm, Lake Flato. Have you heard of Lake Flato? Yes. Okay. What have you heard about them? What do you know about them? Okay, let me rephrase the question. When you look at their logo, can you give me 2 adjectives that can define or describe this logo? You? Can you give me a word? What do you think of when you look at it? Either one of you. Whoever. I'll take whoever.
I guess Confluence Park, that's what I think of.
You think of Confluence Park when you see the logo?
Yes.
Okay, so what do they have in common?
They designed I don't know what it's called exactly, but they designed some of it, something in the park. I don't know what it's called. I don't know.
It's yeah. But, okay, Aline, can you help me right here?
Yeah. I mean, it's just literally two names.
Mm-hmm.
Very simple. They have like a neutral color, I would say, the gray, but then the dividing element that stands out is this orange. And I know when we look at their branding, and I guess we look at all of their proposals and documents are kind of simple in text. They use the same color.
Yeah.
But then whenever they want to something stand out, they use that orange.
Yes. So they're very consistent. And we'll talk about consistency in a moment. But also their logo is very clean, simple, and like she said, it's just consistency is what really sets them apart. Whether you like it or not, whether you like what they do or not. I don't know where it goes to the next one. Hold on. Let me see. Okay, there we go. So here's a, why does it go to the next one? I'm gonna go there. Okay. Oh my God. Anyway, So though there are often a number of hands touching a project, their clear design philosophy allows Lake Plato to maintain a highly consistent design quality. So here's the two key words, consistency and clear. That's what I see when I see that logo. And that's what I see when I see their buildings. They're very consistent with the way that they design. And this is probably just me observing the people that work at Lake Plato, but when I meet somebody that works at Lake Plato, I immediately know they work at Lake Plato without even getting to talk to them. Just because they themselves portray that mission, it is so bizarre, but it's just the way that I feel. When I walk into Lake Plato, I know exactly what all of these people are gonna look like, and act like, and talk like. And it's great. I mean, I personally do love what they do and their philosophy and like what we just read. Maybe the reason why I admire them so much is because they're so consistent with the way that they design. And like I said, if you are not particularly a fan of what they do, at least you can understand what consistency is whenever you're creating your brand. Okay, so now I picked a third example that does not relate to architecture, or it's not an architecture firm or interior design firm. Can anybody have a wild guess of who these people are, or what type of services they provide? Just by looking at their logo.
Banking?
No. They're engineers. So they went the very bold route. And let me see if this will take me to their website. Oh, thank God. Working? Yeah. No, why is it not? Now it's not doing this. I see it here and I don't see it here. Oh well.
If you escape, if you escape it, will it, instead of going to full
Maybe
screen?
it's there? Oh. There? Okay, there we go. So whenever I think of engineers, sadly, I hope nobody here is related to one, but anyway, I don't think of anything too exciting, right? And these people are cool, but they're usually a little bit more conservative with the way that they brand themselves. And for Big Red Dog, obviously they're not that conservative, but their website is very interactive. It's also very easy to navigate. Their color scheme, same kind of like Gensler, just red and black and white. But I thought it was very cool, the way that they are and the way that they portray their brand, and even to their logo, where it kind of doesn't make sense at all. But it's simple also, where you can recognize it right away. So they went to a very bold route, not the safe one, the bold one, where they will stand out definitely amongst all engineers when you're looking for an engineering firm, I think. Even when you get to I think they have, somewhere I saw the people, our team. So it's a bunch of young engineers. So most of these guys are either millennials or related to one. So they're kind of, channeling their brand towards appealing towards millennials, I think. Or, people that are current with today's trends. That's kind of what I'm trying to say. Anyway, next tip is, what's your purpose? Now I'm going to talk about Disney and Apple. So the one thing that these two brands have in common is that they have a very clear purpose and a very clear vision. Oh God, I'm so sorry about this. I don't know what happened. Anyway, so Apple and Disney do not talk much about what they sell, which is computers and entertainment. They talk about why they sell them and how they're going to make our lives better by using those products. In the same way, you're going to be delivering design services. You do not have to be specific on you do have to list the services that you provide, but what is going to be clear in your mission or stated in your mission is how you're going to provide them. what makes you different than other designers and why people should choose you over everybody else. So what makes you unique? Hopefully this one stays. Anyway, yes, okay, cool. So what makes you unique? I'm going to talk about one person who I particularly feel is very unique in this campus. I hope that you get a chance to take one of his classes, and that would be Professor Craig Blunt. Can you raise your hand if you know who this man is? Cool, yay. So, okay, so what makes him unique? Huh? His drawing style, the way he dresses, the way he talks, even that he smokes a lot, yeah. It's his personality, just you want to be around the man, right? And we all know how to draw, or at least that's what we're prepared to do. And so he's delivering a service. He is giving you a drawing. I know how to do watercolor. I know how to draw an elevation. I know how to draw a section. I cannot do it like Craig does. Or I cannot teach it the way he does. So the reason why these classes get filled in like 30 minutes every time they're open is because people want him to teach it. Doesn't matter if I'm going to be teaching you the same exact thing, you want him to teach it because that's what makes him unique, the way that he delivers that service, right? So I think he's the perfect example of uniqueness. And that's what will make him memorable for, years to come. So whoever's going to step off his shoes later is going to take on a very, very big task. But I would like for you to use him as an example when you're thinking of uniqueness. And like I said at the beginning, don't force anything. You're never going to be Craig Blunt. Nobody's going to be Craig Blunt ever. But you can be noticed for being yourself and for being unapologetically who you are. And that's exactly what he embodies, in my opinion. So you want people to want you for the way that you deliver whatever specific service you feel confident and you are an expert in. Does that make sense? Yes? I hope so. Now I'm going to give you another example, one that I thought was very good. This is a student portfolio. Maybe this one you will relate more to. This is an example of one of the spreads from my friend Mauricio Tafoya's student portfolio. He now works at Gensler, and previously he worked at Overland Partners. But when he was creating this portfolio, he had a clear understanding of what he liked and who he wanted to work for at that moment. So he created this portfolio based on that idea. He loves traveling, he loves photography, he loves sketching, and he loves model making, pretty much everything, right? And he's pretty good at everything. So he designed this, and look at that beautiful picture. So all of his portfolio renders are so cool. And let me try to see if I can get to it. Anyway. Copy. Can you see anything? Oh, yes. All right. Anyway. So you will see consistency in this portfolio, but there's a lot of elements in the portfolio also. He used a very bold color palette. What is this? Did I go to another one? Oh, no. Oh, okay. So he decided to choose, okay, close it. Okay, he decided to show his resume in his portfolio. That's kind of like, depends on what you want to do, but you don't have to. But all of his projects start with a very cool picture like this, and the pink happens every time a new project starts. So it's a very good element that was used for people to identify when one project ends and the other one begins. Consistency also is key in a portfolio design and creating this image. See how even for diagrams he's using this pink sporadically. and I mean, in everything that he does. He obviously doesn't just use the pink, but the pink happens whenever something important needs to be addressed in his portfolio. So see the little entourage. He took all these pictures, by the way. Model making. See, pink again. Anyway, I can talk about his portfolio for hours, but this is a different type of example. I'm showing you the firms, and then I'm showing you a student work, which is just as strong. And he's doing it individually. Before he even gets a job, he was able to create something like this, so you should be able to do that as well. Moving on. What's your image? So I cannot talk about Mauricio when I talk about image, because I know that he's still working on building his brand, and maybe he'll be invited to give a lecture at some point, Armando, but anyway, I'll talk about my own journey when creating my image. So right now, I'm on my 4th set of business cards since I got out of school. Oh Lord, it's Friday. Anyway, dude, does anybody want to pass this one around? Because you need to look at the paper, or touch the paper. So, only so that you can see exactly what I mean. Okay, so this is my 4th set of business cards, and the one that I'm probably the most happy with at the moment. Like I said earlier, I just like too many things, and I've been doing too many things for such a long time. I'm an interior designer, like Armando said, and I did my master's in architecture that I also need to talk about at the end of this lecture. I haven't forgotten, Steve. And I've done art, and I love graphics, and I love color. So how can I put all of that together into one brand? Pretty hard. My first set of business cards had an illustration, a self-portrait at the front, on the front of my business card. But whenever I became an interior designer, a registered interior designer, I said, okay, so this, by having an illustration at the front, is just going to have people think, oh, she does drawings, or she does illustrations, or she's a graphic designer. And I'm not even a graphic designer, I just do graphic art. So how can I create a business card that somehow brings all of those services together? Because my intent is to work on interior design projects that somehow bring art into the space, or be art curator, or create art for the spaces that I design. So it's kind of like the blend of both. That is my uniqueness, or that's what at least it's my vision and my mission for myself. So whenever I created these business cards, I thought, okay, so what color would stand out the most? And clearly red is kind of like a given. But I had created my self-portrait, and I'll go into my website to show you that, what I mean. So essentially I created my website before I created my business card. And I looked at the front page on my website, and I said, okay, why shouldn't I just use the same color for my business card? So when people are looking at my website, and then they're looking at my business card, they'll see a connection through color. And so that's essentially what I did. I haven't added my interior design services into this website, so it's mainly art. But at least I have a foundation to build from. And then for the back, I kept it very simple, and I picked a font that looked very similar to my handwriting, but that was still a font and not just a vectorized version of my signature. Something that was not too trendy, that I knew that I wasn't going to be too bored with. very, very soon. And something that was easy to read, very important. You know that people that you give your business card to are not 20 years, or 20-year-old or 30-year-olds all the time. You're probably giving it to people over 60, over 65. So you need to think about legibility whenever you're designing your business cards. When you're designing your website, same exact thing. Am I running? I just have 10 minutes, right, Armando?
Yeah.
Okay. So consistency is key in this branding process. Once you design your business card, it doesn't stop there. You need to take this into your resume, into your portfolio, into your webfolio, into your website, into your social media presence. Everything that you put out there is going to reflect who you are, and it's going to affect your business. So every advertisement that you post should be thought of as a contribution to the complex symbol, which is your brand image. Even the way you dress sometimes can affect what your brand is. So you need to define what your brand stands for, its core values and tone of voice, and then communicate consistently in those terms. Right now, for example, I am working on creating a new portfolio that incorporates all of my services, or the services that I am able to provide. And I'm using a very similar color palette to what I have on my website that's specifically related to art. But I picked a different font, something a little bit more classic. And that's actually, I think it's Helvetica. Just to give it a little bit of a twist. And so it would be easier to read whenever I put things in paragraph form, because you do need to think about what the content will be. For a business card, this font is fine, but maybe for a portfolio it won't be too good, because first of all it's all caps. Second of all, it's very thin. So when you're writing paragraphs, it might be a little bit too hard on the eye whenever people are trying to read your descriptions. So that's why there's a little bit of a difference between the business card and the portfolio. I decided to stick with something a little bit safer, but still using the same color scheme so that it kind of all ties in together. Okay, so let's assume that you've already created your business card, you've already created your website, your workfolio, portfolio, you're ready. It doesn't stop there. Once you did all of this, you need to be your biggest ambassador. You are the one person that knows your brand the best, so you need to advertise it. That's why I say that the branding process, it never stops. Never stops. And that was brought up at the beginning of the lecture by this young lady right here. It's just never ending. And it is totally true. You need to always work, and nothing will work in your favor unless you do. Two last pieces of advice that I'll give you. Number one, don't be afraid to make mistakes. You do it every day. I do it every hour. I make a mistake every hour, probably 30 minutes, I don't know. But it is better to create something that others criticize than to create nothing and criticize others. So you're going to make mistakes with the branding process, same as you do in every other interior design project or architecture project. You just have to do it. And the last thing, this is one quote that really has inspired me throughout my career, and I think it's very true. He who works with his hands is a laborer. We're all laborers here, right? He who works with his hands and his head is a craftsman, but he who works with his hands, his head and his heart is an artist. And that's what I aim to be, and that's what you should all aim to be, because architects and designers, interior designers, any type of designers, we're artists. We're here to create, spaces that make people's lives better. Not only visually, but how they work functionally. So I hope this helped to some extent. I'm sorry about the technical difficulties. I had it all planned out. I don't know what I did or what button I hit that this is not working. But anyway, that's what I have for you. If you have any questions, you have what? So sometimes I think no questions is a good thing, and sometimes I think it's a bad thing. So I hope there's at least one question. Maybe? No? Nothing. Clear? That was clear? Yes.
I guess I want to know, have you ever had to defend your brand? Has it ever kind of gotten away from you in a direction that you didn't necessarily want it to go?
No, not really, not at this moment. Right now, I guess if I was working a little bit more, or more maybe if I was working at a firm, that would be a little bit different. But since I'm here as a professor, I have a little bit more creative freedom when it comes to my own business. But I did work at 2 firms before I worked here, and that was Pfluger Architects and Perkins & Will. And they did completely different types of projects. So with Pfluger, we did schools, and with Perkins & Will, we did healthcare. So we designed the new tower for University Hospital. So it was a very good learning experience for me, and I loved the people there, and I loved the projects, but it was never my passion to work on those types of projects. So that's when I had that conflict. Thankfully, and not thankfully at the moment, I thought it was, you know, I was devastated when this happened, but after my internship with Perkins & Will ended, nobody was hiring, so it was the recession, and I got blessed with this job, and I've been here since then. So I think just it happened so that it naturally, it worked on my favor, but I never really planned it that way. I wanted to get experience at whatever firm would take me, and then get, you know, take my own route. But thankfully now I'm at a point in my career when I could be selective of interior design projects that I do, and most of them incorporate something very artistic, or, you know, where I can have a little bit of fun with color and things like that. So yeah, thank you for your question. I hope I answered it the right way. Yes.
So when you're researching before you've made your brand, aren't you afraid that you might change your own by seeing others, and that it might influence too much on your own?
Not if you're clear with what your mission is. If you're confused, then yeah, maybe, but I mean, we always have precedents, right? When you're given an interior design or architecture project, there's always references. And the key is to make it your own, you know? You need to be able to understand who you are, and yes, consider those references, but at the end of the day, what's gonna be you? So, yes and no, it can happen, but you have to be very conscious about when that is happening and changing it up so that it's yours entirely. If there's no more questions, yeah, oh, there's one more, yeah, sorry, this thing blocked me.
It's okay. So how did you narrow down all of your passions? Because I have a similar problem where I'm a little bit of a jack of all trades, and I'm very passionate about a lot of different things. And I don't quite know how to create it into one whole thing.
First of all, I thought about what I consider, so when people come to me for a project, what I'm most excited about. And I'm most excited about projects that incorporate art and color. So if they don't, then I'm like, okay, second, if I need the money, maybe, whatever, you know, but I'm being very truthful here, I hope I can be. But anyway, so I kind of, excuse me, do it that way. And I also think, okay, I need to spend 9 hours on this. Is it really worth my time? I'm a new mom, and I am a wife, and I'm doing all of these things. So it has to be worth my time. It's not necessarily how much they pay or whatever, it's that I'm enjoying it. Even as an artist, when people come to me and they're like, oh, I want you to create this beautiful landscape with a bunch of flowers. I'm not a landscape artist, so I just say, no, thank you. Great, I can give you the contact of somebody that can do it for you. They're like, no, but I want you. No, but I'm not going to give you what you want. It's really not my thing. I like them, I just cannot do them the way that I like them, so I just am going to say no to that. So I think you just have to have a clear mission and understand what you like the most and prioritize it that way. That's really what has worked for me. what I'm most passionate about and what I'm willing to spend my time on without really thinking about how much money I'm gonna make off of it. Yeah. So, you're welcome. Steve Temple wanted me to talk to you a little bit. I know we have, 10 minutes? I can't really see. 10? Okay. Wanted me to talk to you about interior design as a career path. Some of you maybe are in the gateway kind of process and you are undecided on what path you want to pursue. So I was once in your shoes. I actually graduated from this school from a bachelor's in interior design, and then I pursued my master's in architecture here. So when it was time for me to decide what I wanted to do, like I said in the past, I liked architecture and interior design so much that I didn't know what to do. And I said, okay, so if I do architecture as my undergrad and architecture as my master's, that's cool because after I graduate from my master's in architecture, I can still sit for the interior design licensing exams and be both architect and interior designer. Then I thought, but I really like the projects that interior design people do, and they incorporate a lot of the things that I was into. And I said, maybe there's a different way that I can approach this. And so I went to the advisor at the moment, and they said, oh, no, you can definitely do that. You can do your bachelor's in interior design, and instead of doing the MArch 2 program, you will do the MArch 3 program to do your architecture master's, and you can be both at the end. So it was just one extra year that I had to go to school. And right now, there's ways in which you can shorten that time by taking some electives prior to graduation from your bachelor's. But that's just the route that I selected because I prefer, or I'm more inclined towards interior architecture because I think our program should be called interior architecture, to be honest. So interior architecture rather than architecture. So anyway, I wanted that to be my specialty. And so that's what I pursued, and I hope some of you join me in the interior design program. If you still have questions after this, I'll be happy to answer them. But my main goal was to let you know that if you pursue a bachelor's in interiors, you still have the option to become an architect if you do your MArch 3 program here. So you can be both. Best of both worlds.
You might be able to do it in 6 years too, including some summers maybe.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So it's not that difficult. So if you're getting an architecture degree, it's going to take 6 years anyway. You get the master's, you might as well get the interior and architecture.
Oh,
It's
yes.
an option.
One last thing. I don't know if you guys got to see the card or touch it or whatever, but this is the reason. The reason I passed it down is because of the paper. So whenever you're designing your business card, a lot of you guys want to do something very thick or like a square or a circle. Don't. Keep it standard. It's going to bring your costs down, first of all. And people like it better because it fits better in your pocket and your wallet. If it's too thick, people are just going to toss it and you're going to spend so much money on them that it's just not worth it. The only thing that I recommend you spending some money on is the quality of the paper. It doesn't have to be too thick, but it just has to feel nice. And what I did here, these were ordered from China, super cheap. But this is called silk laminate. And this is spot UV. So if you see like the shininess on it, is spot UV on silk laminate. It's probably 5 cents more expensive than the regular business cards that you find. Okay, so just pay attention to paper. Same with your portfolio. You don't have to do a hard cover. As long as your paper is nice and your colors are nice, or nicely printed, make sure that you always have it on CMYK mode whenever you're printing a portfolio. We can talk about that for hours as well. But yeah, just spend money on paper for your business cards. That was another just little tip that I wanted to share. That's why I passed this down. And that's it, I'm done talking. I need water.